Oh, the joys of sleep sleep problems. What's up, you guys? How's it going? Welcome back. I'm Jeremy, and people are terrible. And joining me, as always, is Caleb Miles.
Are we doing intros, or are they getting all that 30 minutes of pre-podcast anyway?
No, they're not getting all of it. No, nobody wants all of it. It's like not focused. Just kind of talking about just previously talking about like old people shit. Really, hope they adjust my thyroid medicine.
Yeah. You don't think people want to hear about my medication? It's pretty riveting stuff.
No, it's funny because I take this. It's called propanolol, and it basically either treats blood pressure, which I don't have high blood pressure, but my hands kind of shake a little bit. So I take the thyroid or the propanolol to chill out my hands from shaking, and it makes me so tired. So that's kind of my thing as well. It's just like makes me groggy as shit. I have drank probably 3 cups of coffee today.
Oh, I'm like on cup 6. It's ridiculous.
Sounds like it's working. If you're staying up all night, it's doing its job.
It's working. Maybe that's what the problem is. Maybe it isn't my medication. Maybe it's the 6 or 7 cups of coffee I have in a day.
Oh, shit. Well, we got some fun stories to talk with you guys about today, and we've actually switched the formula just enough so that me and Caleb are kind of surprising each other. It's going to be the same from where you're sitting, but we've each kind of brought our own stories so that instead of both of us knowing what we're talking about, we get to kind of tell the other person about what we're talking about. So that should maybe make it a little fresher. We'll see how it ends up working out, but I'm looking forward to it. I know, as always, we're going to jump into some weird news headlines before we talk about some stuff going on in Florida, and then each of us have brought our own topics for the week. I think we got some good ones to discuss this week, things that you can apply to your own life, maybe.
Sure. Sorry, you cut out there. I missed a big chunk of that.
Oh, it was unimportant. I was just telling everybody what we were going to do. My topic for the week is going to be, can spouses have friends of the opposite sex or their sexual preference? And Caleb, what's your topic today?
Is young people aren't fucking. That's pretty much my topic.
Yeah, I heard a little bit about this. So we'll dive into those here in just a little bit, but I'm going to kick this one off because a couple weeks ago, Caleb and I were talking about an Indonesian airport. I think it was Indonesian airport then too. I have to go back and listen to for sure, but there was this guy that got caught smuggling, or they found like 1,200 exotic tortoises in this person's suitcase. And that was a pretty wild story. The person was bringing them across country lines to maybe sell them, maybe make some sort of medicine out of them. I don't exactly know. But there was recently a Russian man that was arrested after they found a drugged orangutan in his luggage, in his carry-on. Did you see this?
No.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, so I found this in the New York Times. And as I mentioned, the headline is, "Man arrested after drugged orangutan is found in Indonesian airport." In Hong Kong, officers on the Indonesian resort island of Bali found a primate the size of a human toddler curled up in a rattan basket this weekend in the middle of an international airport. So this dude had fed it a bunch of Sudafed and put it into like a little carry-on bag that was like almost the exact same size as the monkey. And they open it up, and the thing's just completely conked out, and it's got a bunch of like discarded antihistamine, cold medicine around it. They ended up obviously seizing the monkey, and the man is under arrest while they try to figure out if he's part of a smuggling ring. But yeah, that's what's going on there.
Why are people always bringing weird animals onto fucking planes?
Dude, this was so funny because it literally is like such a cute look. Like, orangutans are ugly as shit when they get old, but when they're babies, they look like humans, man.
So it was in a little like luggage, or what exactly was it in?
They said it was in a rattan basket. There's a picture of it. I'm going to go ahead and put it up real quick.
So was it like curled up inside this said basket?
Yeah, like it was snug. Like, let me send you the pictures.
Of all the ways to smuggle a baby orangutan, it doesn't sound like it's the most inhumane. Because I mean, he just gave him a bunch of shit and conked him out. But he's definitely selling that to someone. I don't think you can use this is my personal use stash with an orangutan.
I would love a pet monkey now. After seeing this, I literally went down like a YouTube rabbit hole of watching like little baby chimpanzees and little baby orangutans just like being super cute, and I think I prefer monkey babies to human babies.
So I love human kids. I even love human babies like to a certain point, but you know when they're in that like weird like blobfish state where they all look the same?
Yes, I do.
And people are like, "Oh, your baby's so cute." I'm like, "It looks like no baby. It just looks like a baby. I don't know what it looks like. It looks cute." I've never seen that fresh of a baby chimp, though. I mean, that could be the same thing. They could just look like featureless monsters too.
Oh, that's a good point. Like, I don't know how young these babies are. Hey, open up your Twitter real quick. Do you see that?
Okay, I got it ready. Let's see. Did you send me a picture of this?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Let's see.
Mr. Zeskov's suitcase contained allergy pills wrapped in plastic. He said that he had fed the animal allergy pills mixed with milk, causing it to lose consciousness for up to 3 hours. At first, I was like, damn, he drugged that monkey. That's awful. But then when I found out what kind of medicine it is, I was like, oh, the little guy's just sleeping it off. But he could face up to 5 years in prison.
Okay, I take it back. He's kind of gross.
You think so?
Yeah, look at that veiny belly on him.
It's super shiny.
It's super shiny and hairy. Looks like someone oiled up my stomach is what it looks like.
2-year-old orangutan. Okay, so it's a baby, but it's not a newborn, like you said. We'd have to see what a newborn orangutan looks like to see how cute they really are. I don't know, man. That little guy looks like he's chilling.
No, that's my thing is like, I searched newborn and I started to put orangutan. It's the newborn orange poop. So,
well, obviously that's a thing.
Yeah, apparently that's something I didn't know newborns had orange poop, but you live and learn. No, they're still kind of cute when they're newborn. I mean, they're grosser, like everything.
They are pretty fucking cute.
Their skin looks like scrotum skin. They kind of look like they're covered in scrotum skin when they're newborn.
And they've got old people hair, even when they're babies.
Yeah, they really do.
All right, well, that's my story. What do you got?
My first one is just a weird one. So this is offensive chicken recipe receives backlash for looking like female genitals.
Okay, hold up.
Chicken recipe.
I know what it is, right? It's the chicken cordon bleu that they split down the middle and they stuff the ham in it.
Did you see this thing?
Yeah, dude, I'm glad you brought that up because of all things, Victoria brought it to me yesterday and showed me the video of it. And I'm like, God, are they trying to make those things look like vaginas?
When I first of all, I think it's stupid to get offended by it. You know,
that's ridiculous.
And when I first saw the picture of it already made, like where it's all breaded and the cheese is coming out, I'm like, if your vagina looks like that, go to a doctor. But I saw the actual video, and it does look like they are attempting to make it look like a vajayjay to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually had chicken like that before and don't recall. Maybe it's actually having it said to you or thinking about it before you see the video, because it's a pretty straightforward, like that's how you stuff a chicken, no doubt about it. But yeah, it is very suggestive looking. It's funny. I don't know, man, if it's just the way they shoot it or what, but does the food look good to you?
It looks good once it's cooked. Like it looks all right. But like before, it looks like, especially like once they bread it and the way they shape it, it's very like a cartoon look of like a cartoonist look of a vagina. Like it pretty much is like what like a little kid would draw to like a teenage boy to be offensive. Like that's kind of the general shape of it. And my thing is, I don't know if it was intentional, but my favorite part is someone said it's worse than Pornhub. I don't think that person's ever been on Pornhub if they think this is worse.
No, that's a weird quote. You kind of wonder and just hope that most of those people are trolling and that they're really not offended. They're just getting a laugh out of it. Because yeah, like you'd have to be such a prude. And I mean, hey, look, if you look at it and you're like, I don't want to eat that, it looks like a vagina, then hey, like whatever you want to do, or like whatever you like, if you lose your appetite, who am I to judge you for that? But if
I think
you're
it's a
like
little weird. I'm
offended by,
judging you.
oh yeah, it's fucking weird for sure. Okay, let me ask you:
It would be
Have you
like-
ever heard of have you ever heard the vagina, or specifically like part of the vagina referred to as a bacon strip?
No, I've never heard it. Have you? Is this a thing?
Oh yeah. I remember. Okay, do you have any good what am I trying to say? Like analogies? No, not an analogy. Like, okay, bacon strip was one that I always heard, and I also heard that it looked like a chewed up piece of bubble gum.
Yeah, chewed bubble gum, I've heard. And of course, like when they say beef curtains and all those other things.
Beef curtain, that's a good one. Mohawk taco.
Never heard Mohawk taco. That's one that actually sounds disgusting.
Fur burger.
For a burger, I've heard. Why do we always compare vaginas to food? Well, we do with penises too. Eggplants,
Eggplant, yeah.
the whole emoji.
Sausages.
So that's my thing when you said about people being like wouldn't eat it. Like you could make meatloaf in the shape of a cock, and if it tastes good, I'm gonna eat it. Like,
Yeah, I'm with
give
you,
a shit.
man.
Not like my thing is apparently even Chrissy Teigen. I think I know who that is.
Yeah,
Not
John
like
Legend's wife.
She weighed in and called it fucking vile. I'm like, calm
Really?
down. Like, you calm down. There's real shit to get offended about instead of this, you know?
I
Like,
just don't understand. Is the internet is literally discovering chicken cordon bleu because of this?
which is a good meal, so I mean, it's pretty tasty.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's
And
fantastic.
vagina's nice as well. So what's the problem?
Yeah, I'm into it. I say we all should celebrate by making the vagina style chicken cordon bleu. It's funny, I keep pulling up the picture from it, and it's the same picture of the raw chicken being spread open by two different fingers on each hand. It's fucking goofy looking.
It seems like it's a little bit intentional going for it to me, you know? Which it worked. Apparently got 19 million views.
Did it really?
Yeah. So
Whoa,
good on that.
no doubt. All right. Well, you guys let us know what you think. Is it more or less appetizing? Because now you think of a vagina when you see it. So, Australian court rules that farting at someone may not be bullying.
What does that even mean?
There was a victim, a plaintiff, who was trying to sue their former supervisor, who he referred to as Mr. Stinky, who would walk around and fart at him, or walk into his office and fart and like crop dust him, basically. Let's see. An Australian appeals court on Friday dismissed a bullying case brought by an engineer who accused his former supervisor of repeatedly breaking wind towards him. Not just around him, but straight up toward him. And the Victoria State Court of Appeal upheld a Supreme Court judge's ruling that even if engineer David Hink's allegations were true, flatulence did not necessarily constitute bullying. Caleb, weigh in.
I guess it could be bullying, but at the same time, like, man up and like, I don't know. But then the thing, as I say, man up and like punch the dude if it's really that big of a deal. But at the same time, you know, then that you would get in trouble for that. So, I think it's weird that a grown ass man is like crop dusting someone.
Oh, it's real.
Like-
It's real. It is the most petty shit I could possibly think of. In most circumstances, I would just be like, dude, what the fuck is the matter with you? But when it's your employer constantly doing it, that's gotta suck.
That reminds me of the episode of Friends where Chandler's boss slaps him on the butt. Have you seen that?
No.
He like always slaps him on the butt when he does a good job, and he's like, he doesn't know how to bring it up because it is his employer. Like he's like, and then he ends up finally bringing it up, and the dude's like, okay, I won't do it, and he starts slapping another guy's butt, and then Chandler gets jealous. It's a pretty good episode.
So this guy is a 56-year-old man seeking 1.8 million Australian dollars, which is 1.3 American, damages from his former employer, construction engineering. All right, 56-year-old man. I can understand even more him like not wanting his boss to fart at him, but like, how is a 56-year-old man going to come up with the nickname Mr. Stinky for your boss? It should never have gotten to the place where it was that normalized to where you have a nickname for him that you're using repeatedly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he deserves probably to be sued, I guess. It's pretty awful work environment. Um, but it reminds me of I remember we went over to this friend's house, like the friend of a friend. Like we weren't really friends with the kids, but we went to school and we were like in the same neighborhood. And I don't remember the exact story. I was real young, but the dad, who's in his probably 40s, said something like to me, like, I'll hold you down and fart on you. And even as like a 10-year-old kid, I'm like, what the fuck is this old man?
That's weird.
It's weird. It's a little weird.
Okay, I got one. This is not this. I mean, this is pretty similar. I had a buddy named Josh growing up, and his uncle had a fart jar. It was a mason jar, and to tell you the truth, I don't know, because thinking back to it, how do you keep it trapped in? But he would constantly add farts to it and seal it back up, and there was like. Again, this might just be like, the way like myths evolve over time, but I remember there being like condensation on the inside of the mason jar that was like years worth of farts.
It probably, I mean, it could have condensated, I guess, a little bit as soon as he did it, but I don't think there's like fart residue on the side.
Well, and the truth is every time you unscrewed the top off of it, the previous fart's gone.
Well, even then, even if you never unscrewed it, I don't think it would stay trapped in there. I think it would dissipate eventually.
What if it were... You open up like a 10-year-old fucking fart mason jar and it just knocks out everybody in the room?
That's how the apocalypse begins. We global warming or nuclear war. It's a fart jar. It's this old guy's fart jar.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know about the suing the guy for $1.8 million. I think that's a lot of money. And crop dusting somebody, it's like, if you think you're joking, then I don't think that it should be like a malicious thing. But if this dude got ran off from the job because his boss was farting at him over and over again, it seems like the courts would have to do, like, okay, not assault, but harassment.
Yeah, I think first of all, if he meant as a joke, then this guy should have been like, hey, you know how you do that as a joke? It really makes me uncomfortable, man.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I would handle it, because I'm a grown ass man and I can talk to someone who makes me uncomfortable. But he might have done that. And the dude's like, I'll show him, and just wants to fart more around him.
Yeah. You can imagine a lot of people would do that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess good on him if he gets paid off of. I'll get farted on for a couple of years to get a couple million.
No,
$1 million.
Man. The judge said, "Sorry, dude, you don't have a case."
Yeah, I forgot he didn't win.
Maybe he was asking for too much. I don't know. What's your next story?
So you actually perfectly segued into another court one. Judge orders man not to drink Pepsi while on probation. So
I read this headline. Tell me about that.
So weird. So this comes from us from HuffPost. The defendant will not be able to drink Pepsi for 4 years, according to the ruling. This is in Wailuku, Hawaii. A Hawaii man has been ordered not to drink his favorite soft drink during the 4 years of probation on a car theft conviction. Judge Rhonda Liu imposed the restriction last week while sentencing 21-year-old Christopher Montiliano Jr., the Maui News reported. Montiliano lied to the police when he was arrested with the car in Maui last June. He said that he was on his way to buy soft drinks. So the judge issued the order for him to not drink Pepsi for 4 years after he told her it was his favorite soft drink.
Okay. So
it's like a weird punishment.
The guy stole a car.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, he can't drink Pepsi for 4 years.
Yeah. So
what the fuck?
And how would you ever enforce this?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of weird punishments before. Again, this sounds like a judge trying to go viral. What a weird, but for, like, I don't trust him. You seem like a Pepsi drinker. You probably like Pepsi more than Coke, don't you?
Oh, fuck no. Pepsi's disgusting.
All right. One thing we can agree on.
Yeah. No, Pepsi's nasty. I don't know any freak that or RC Cola. You know, like
who's drinking RC Cola?
So there used to be this really there's this soda. You guys probably have it. If anywhere has it, Florida has it, called Bubba Cola. Have you ever heard of Bubba Cola?
No.
It's like a fucking 4-liter jar, for like 50 cents.
Mm.
We used to drink it all the time because we were ghetto ass kids, but it is disgusting. And then I loved their Dr. Pepper growing up. I kind of want to just find it because I'm like, it's probably horrible. But yeah, Bubba Cola, that's a weird one.
Yeah, I can't believe I've never heard of it. It definitely does sound like a southern or Gulf Coast kind of soda there for sure. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a crazy story. So obviously the judge asked him like, "Oh, you wanted soda so bad? Well, what kind of soda were you going to get?" "Oh, Pepsi's my favorite." You can't drink Pepsi for 4 years. And then, like you said, how could you possibly enforce that?
It's not like he's going to get pulled over and they're going to go look in his car and go, "Is that a Pepsi can? Are you driving? Is that open right now?"
Open container, yeah.
Yeah, or it's not like they can, it's not a breathalyzer. They're going to be like, "There's a high sugar and corn syrup content in your breath." Like, there's no way to enforce this.
Yeah, that's but that's not all that happened to him, obviously.
No, I mean, he got more, but that's the only, I think he got probation, obviously, for 4 years. But that was one of the things that was part of it. And I agree with you. It was just, I don't know. I think it might have been trying to go viral, which if we're living I guess we live in a place where politicians try to go viral. Why wouldn't a judge?
Does it say the judge's name in the article?
Rhonda Liu.
Oh, yeah. See? There you go. Let's see what's up with Rhonda Liu. Is it R-H?
So apparently he also has to do, it's RHONDA and then LOO. And then he also has to do 100 hours of community service and $100 fine. Now, that's okay. That makes sense,
Yeah.
But the Pepsi thing is so bizarre. And she's doing him a favor. If he's drinking Pepsi and he needs to transition to Coke, she's doing him a favor.
100%. 100%. I'm surprised that this is not like some sort of paid marketing thing for Coke.
For Pepsi?
Oh, yeah. Coke doesn't need it. Yeah, good point for Pepsi.
Because I was like, Coke's fine.
Yeah, Coke.
Pepsi's like, we'll take all the press we can get.
Oh, well. All right. So let's see. I guess my next one is prison guard smells a rat and finds rodent stuffed with drugs. Did you hear about that?
So he did what with drugs? I heard prison guard, rodent, and drugs. That's all I heard.
This one's really weird. A prison guard smell a rat and find rodents stuffed with drugs. The disemboweled rats were filled with 5 mobile phones and chargers, 3 SIM cards, cigarette papers, and a large amount of drugs, including cannabis. So there was this one particular prison, and somebody was coming up to this prison in England and throwing dead rats over the fence and into the yard, and the rats had been stitched shut. Dead rats stuffed with phones and drugs.
I mean, it's a new one. I'll give him for being creative.
Why? Why dead rats?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's better than shoving a phone up your ass and going in there.
I mean, why not just throw the phone over?
Just throw the phone?
I don't know, man. Like that seems...
They're gonna see a phone sitting there. And you're like, why the fucking phone? I don't think anyone's going to pick up this rat. Well, obviously, someone eventually did.
So there's a person coming by in the middle of the night. Obviously, like somebody's connected to somebody inside, and this person knows that they can make a lot of money by selling prisoners what they need in jail. So they go and they find rats, or they buy rats. I mean,
they probably buy them.
So they buy rats, they kill them, they cut them open, they disembowel them, they stick baggies full of stuff up. Like, how the hell are you gonna fit mobile phones inside of a rat?
I've seen some big fucking rats.
Dude, like how big?
Like dogs, like little cat, like fucking disgusting.
Hold up, man. Those are like those are like those fucking giant things in New Guinea.
Yeah, no, those little things. No, but I've seen some big, like, pull up a picture of like a giant rat. You'll find some big ass rats, but if big enough for a phone.
Dude.
And then the weed, of course, that's easy. I mean,
yeah, you can fit a quite a bit of, oh my God. Yeah, rats get huge.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But think about throwing that big fucker over. You like spinning it by its tail and then.
You got to get momentum going.
Yeah, because that's a big thing. Maybe he
Yeah.
was just putting weed in it. He was trying to make a cordon bleu and he didn't know how. Maybe that's what it was.
That is gross, man. So, okay, and then the prisoners know it, so they go over and they unstitch the rat and they take the baggie out, and now they've got their narcotics. I don't know, man. That sounds gross all the way around, but I guess it is smarter than just throwing the contraband over.
Yeah.
So what's a better way?
And that's my thing is I don't know a better way than that. I think it's a pretty good way. Like as weird as it is, I'm like, it's a pretty good way to get it. What else could you throw over a fence
I don't
that people
know.
wouldn't notice?
I mean, it would have to be an animal, a dead
It'd have to be
animal.
the animals of sort.
That's fucking weird. Giant rats are helping doctors in Mozambique sniff out tuberculosis. Oh man, dude, there are some giant rats over in Africa apparently.
Yeah, New York ones too. There's some big ass ones.
This thing looks like a fox. All right. Well, that's
Some
weird.
rats are actually kind of cute.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if they had fur on their tails, I'd be all right with them.
Yeah, and it's that weird thing we talked about where if an animal has fur on its tail, we're okay. Because essentially a dog is just a really big fucking rat with a hairy tail.
I don't know about that, man. What else you got?
So a woman with two wombs gives birth weeks apart.
What?
Yeah, so this is a woman in Bangladesh was found to have two functioning wombs when she gave birth to twins 26 days after giving birth to a single baby.
That's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I saw this one. I was like, it's not funny, but it's fascinating. That's why I had to get it. So this Dr. Sheila Podar, a gynecologist, said doctors at another hospital did not notice anything unusual when Arifa Sultana gave birth to a healthy baby boy in late February. Sultana was admitted to another hospital with lower abdominal pain just a month later, and doctors discovered she was pregnant with twins that were conceived and grown in a separate uterus than her first baby.
That is
So
so crazy.
like, and all three babies, thank God, were fine, healthy, but apparently, this does happen. You can develop more than one uterus. Obviously, it's not very common, but here's what they said about it. It's not very common to have two uteruses, but when the uterus develops, it comes from two tubes, and those tubes fuse together. For some women, the fusion does not occur, and the dividing wall does not dissolve. So that's what happens. So she was having sex and got pregnant in one uterus, and then later also got pregnant in the other. So she has kids. She has triplets that aren't triplets, essentially. It's bizarre. I'd never heard anything like that in my entire life.
Does it say whether it's happened before?
I don't know if a birth has happened like that, but two uteruses have happened before.
That's so crazy because yeah, I mean the traditional wisdom or the conventional wisdom is that it takes 9 months to incubate a baby, and it does. So you would think you wouldn't be able to have them for 9 months apart, but wow, and they're not twins because they're totally separate not totally separate, but separate reproductive systems.
Yeah, essentially the tubes, instead of forming into one, both formed in their own uterus, which
Holy shit.
yeah, it's very, very interesting.
I wonder if they knew.
I don't think they knew until I think it's from the way I read the art when I read the article. It sounds like she knew she was pregnant. Obviously, she had birth and was like, "Man, my lower abdominal still hurts." A month later, and they're like, "You have twins in there too, in your other uterus."
So the twins weren't the first. It was one baby and then
baby.
Twins.
Yep,
Wow.
one baby, and then 26 days later, two more babies.
Holy crap.
Isn't that insane?
That is insane. That's definitely interesting. I've never heard of anything like that before. Well, that's pretty crazy. I'm out of stories. Do you have any other ones?
No, but that reminds me. Have you ever seen that show that I didn't know I was pregnant or something like that?
I've never seen it, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I watched one episode, and it's weird. Like these women will literally be like going to take a shit, and they're like, "The baby thought in the toilet."
That's so weird.
I'm like, a little or something, and they're usually always healthy babies. It's never like, like a half form. No, this thing fucking pops out and goes for a jog afterwards. Like they're fully formed babies.
And I mean, from what I've seen in my life, like pregnancy is not a real discreet kind of thing that you're
No.
not aware of.
And even birth, like yeah, I've seen videos of, you know, stuff, and it looks a lot more painful than just like I'm using the restroom and it falls out.
You gotta have a big old cordon bleu to not notice.
That's what I'm saying. You got to. Motherfucker just walks out.
Oh. We were talking a lot about vaginas on this episode.
Yeah, we always talk a lot about vaginas and penises on this show. It's like half of it.
It is.
Did you get a Florida man story?
Oh, let's go ahead and jump into What the Florida. You asked because you had a hard time finding one.
I totally forgot about it. That's why.
Okay, yeah, it was tough. I had to dig through just a bunch of stories about the Florida Man Challenge. That was what the majority of all of the headlines I pulled up were, and then some bad stuff about the guy who was eating faces. So this is interesting. I guess we'll touch on it. I don't actually have it in the notes, but before we get into the funny stuff, a couple years back there was a 20-year-old guy, and he walked into a couple's garage and just started eating one of the dude's faces, like Florida zombie style, and that's horrible. But just now they did a mental health evaluation to see if the dude was fit to sit trial, and it turns out that he thought he had a dog living inside him, that he was half human, half dog. So like it's almost a fucking case of lycanthropy.
That's insane.
It's like that, real life werewolf.
Yeah, Hitler, they say, had that too.
He thought he was part dog?
Yeah, there's actually recorded things of supposedly of him dropping down on all floors and like biting a rug and shaking his head. Yeah.
Pretty weird. All right, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's lighten things up. A Florida man says he paid for sex but didn't get it. Cops say they got the complaint. So there was a homeless man, and he entered a hotel room. Let me make sure I get these facts right, because this is funny. Unwritten rule: when you get ripped off, call the police, except of course in certain conditions. According to West Palm Beach police, a homeless Florida man called them on March 22nd to report that he'd been scammed out of $500. A homeless man with $500. But the man, identified by police as John Omer Single, told responding officer Gregory McDonald that he offered 4 occupants of a room at the Days Inn Motel the money to come join him in his room, 4 women to have sexual relations with him in his room, and they didn't show up.
That's pretty amazing.
So I guess he just walked into this room, threw $500 on the table, and said, "I'll see all 4 of you in a minute." And they were just like, "What the fuck?"
And they filed a complaint.
Yeah, he called the cops. I mean, $500 is a lot of money for a homeless guy, but when you split it up 4 ways, it's not all that much money to have sex with a homeless dude.
Maybe he found a couple of rats stuffed with cell phones and he sold them. You never know how I got them.
I mean, how, like, if it were one woman, $500 is $500. But again, splitting it up that many ways, like the audacity of a homeless guy to think, I just don't understand. What a weird...
Well, and my thing is I have no idea what a hooker costs, but I'm assuming it's more if you're homeless.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like if I'm gonna pay for a hooker, I'm sure she'd be like, "That sucks. I gotta sleep with this hairy bastard." But if I were homeless and haven't showered in 3 years, I'm assuming there's a surcharge.
Yeah. He was released on Sunday after paying a $500. So this dude's out $1,000.
Where is he getting all this money from?
That's a really good question. I guess you can be homeless and still have, I don't know. It seems like you would have taken that $1,000 and got a room, or I mean, I guess he had a room, but like a house. That's like a month of rent at least.
Or a night of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's what, if you guys are giving money to homeless people.
They're using it for hookers.
That's crazy. And I hate to be that guy.
I just found while we were talking, found a really good Florida man story.
Oh, good. What you got?
Florida man shoots and kills pet zebra he did not have a permit for after animal escapes. So a Grant's zebra is dead after escaping a Callahan, Florida property. According to First Coast News, the zebra named Shadow lived in Cottonwood Ranch. Shadow was spotted trotting down a local road by neighbor Watkins. Let me see. She was walking her dog. She says, and then the cop cars come zooming. The zebra runs into this yard, and then all the way to the back film. That's when the car comes zooming. Cops are zooming. I'm standing there. The owner shot it, and the zebra fell.
Jesus Christ! Why?
So apparently, so another neighbor also told the news station that he saw the owner, who has not been publicly identified, shoot and kill the animal. In Young's opinion. There was a time that he attempted to lasso and capture the animal instead of shooting it. So my thing is, that's a weird thing to be like, my pet. First of all, it's weird that he owns a zebra, but bypassing that, your pet runs away, and you're like, I can't catch it, so I'll shoot the fucker.
It's a tragedy that it's gone. And it's not like a zebra, I don't think. I mean, I've never encountered a zebra in the wilds of Florida before, but I don't think they're aggressive. They're horses with stripes.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to run up and attack someone. He's worried that, his zebra's going to attack someone.
You think he did it because he thought he'd be in trouble? Like, oh, well, either I'm going to shoot it or the cops will.
Well, that's my thing. In that scenario, even in that scenario, let the fucking cops shoot it.
Yeah, that's the headline. That's a lot easier to read as a headline is cop shoot escaped zebra. But even that, They'd get in so much trouble, man. You can't be fucking shooting zebras. I don't know. Maybe they're not endangered, but it just seems like if you are owning exotic animals, right? It doesn't matter if it's an orangutan, if it's 2,500 tortoises, if it's a zebra. If you're going to have an exotic animal, you need a tranquilizer gun, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. But I don't think this guy properly thought it through. He didn't get the permit. Yeah. He walked around with a trank gun.
Holy shit, man. That's sad for the zebra. I mean, I guess it's fine. Make some glue out of the fucking thing. At least get some use out of it. You know what I mean?
Make a nice rug. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
My thing, I can't wrap my brain around your pet escaping and then your solution is to shoot it. It's just weird.
Your final solution.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. That's crazy, man. And I mean, it's like he probably put the thing down in somebody's yard. So somebody had a dead zebra in their yard for at least an hour.
Witnessed it. Sounds like everyone was hanging out just watching this dude. It sounds like he chased it down in his car. He came zooming, hopped out of the car, and shot it.
What if he just hit the fucking thing just straight up?
That'd be so much worse.
Yeah, what a crazy story. That's the kind of shit you only see in Florida, 100%.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Those things aren't going to just survive in any climate. But, okay, so 3 days ago, February 28th. Wait. A month ago. Excuse me. A complaint was filed with Florida's Indian River County Sheriff's Department alleging open burning in a yard on 85th Street. When cops showed up, the gentleman doing the burning said, paraphrasing here, but only a little, that his blaze was totally no big deal because the good shit was still inside. So Florida man burns pile of weed in yard.
Why? Why did he...
64-year-old man was tending to a smoldering pile in his backyard measuring 5 to 6 feet in diameter and 2 to 3 feet high. Ellis told the authorities it was just some leaves, but a deputy pointed out a few key facts to Ellis, namely a strong smell of some real dank stuff and the remains of a small pot plant and leaves. At that point, a person burning drugs in their yard might reasonably think, well, you got me. This was probably not the best idea. Should probably keep my mouth shut and call a lawyer, huh? Not Ellis. He reassured the deputy, I was only burning the leaves. It's trash. If it's trash, you don't smoke that. I've got like a quarter pound of it inside. Oh, what an idiot. So when his veracity was proven, there was in fact an aluminum tray with apparent marijuana and drug paraphernalia. And then Ellis asked whether or not the officials found the tray, and a deputy replied they had, to which he responded, I've got more in the refrigerator. Why do you do that?
Why do you implicate yourself after you've already been busted? That's what I want to know.
I don't understand at all. I mean, it's getting to be a lot more like normal and socially acceptable and stuff, but it's still illegal. So I don't understand what he was thinking.
I don't think he was thinking. He was all
How
high as shit
high do
from
you
burning that
have to
pile of weed.
be just standing over it, clam
Yeah.
baking yourself?
He's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on right now.
So last week, 2 years after voters officially supported the measure, medical marijuana has become legal in Florida when Ron DeSantis signed a bill which repealed former Governor Rick Scott's 2017 law on banning all marijuana smoking. So now it's even illegal to smoke it in Florida, which it was supposed to be the whole time. But Rick Scott went and said, you can do it, but it has to be either edibles or the vape or whatever. So
Right.
I just still though, like I wonder what kind of trouble this guy got in. Probably quite a bit.
So it just got legal for medical, you said right now?
Yeah, it's legal for medical to smoke it now.
Okay. So once it's legal for medical, it's legal because everyone just goes, I got anxiety, and then they
Uh-huh.
get weed.
Yeah.
That's what people do. So
It costs money though, and I think that's one of the things about legalization that I think kind of sucks is the problem with pot being illegal is how it disproportionately affects people that are poor. Like if you've got a good attorney, a lot of times you can beat this, like, or at least not get in a lot of trouble. Like imagine if a soccer mom got pulled over and had a joint on her or something like that, she might not get in trouble, where if a black person in a poor neighborhood got pulled over, that same joint might land them with some jail time. So the thing about legalization is it's like, oh, cool. Now people aren't going to get arrested and have to spend time in prison for silly pot charges. But the problem is you have to spend like $500 to go see the doctor the first time. It's like $75 for the card. You've got to pay for the doctor visit each time you go, and then the cost of the medication on top of that. So you're looking at like over $1,000 to even
true.
get in the program in the first place. Or you can just go down to the corner and buy a 20 sack or whatever at a time and have, you know what I mean, pot on you. But because it costs so much, I still think that poor people are going to end up still getting in trouble for it because they're not going to have the money to fork over the first time to get in it the legal way.
that's true. That's something I never thought about as someone who doesn't smoke weed at all and lives in a state where it's legal. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where I guess it does, like everything, disproportionately affects poor people. You're not rich enough to just Jussie Smollett it and make it all go away.
That fucking guy. I'm surprised that didn't come
I
up,
know.
but we've each got other conversations to talk about this time. So let's go ahead and move away from the Florida Man headlines and let's talk about your topic.
So, something I've actually heard about this before, but it came back up, is that a share of Americans has having sex has reached a record of, God, if I could talk. The share of Americans not having sex has reached a record high. It's mainly young people. So young people are not having sex, and this has been something that is been growing quite a bit over the last couple of years. I've seen it. 23% of adults, nearly 1 in 4, who spent the year in celibate state, a much larger than expected number of them were 20-something men. So 20-something men specifically. Experts who study bedroom habits say that there are a number of factors driving the great American sex drought. Age is one of them, so people are getting older. But the 60 older graphic jumped from 18 to 26%, which that's part of it, but that's not all of it. The share reporting no sex has consistently hovered around 50%, and because that age group is growing, it's going to obviously grow. But there were some amazing things that the portion of Americans 18 to 29 reporting no sex in the past year more than doubled between 2008 and 2018 to 23%. Specifically, males is through the roof, not having sex. So women are having sex, but it sounds like they're having either sex with each other or the same men,
Right.
because so it's one of those things. And then Americans in their 30s, 40s, and beyond are much more likely to be married, which makes sense. You have more sex when you're married, despite what people think You know, you have way more sex when you're married. Uh, but the shows a significant gender divide amongst 20 somethings. For the past 3 decades, 20 somethings men and women reported similar rates of sexlessness, but that changed in recent years. Since 2008, the share of men younger than 30 reporting no sex has tripled to 28%.
Holy shit.
That, yeah, it's insane. That's a much steeper increase than the 8% point. The 8% point increase reported among females. So females gone up about 8%, males has tripled. And there's a couple of, well, first of all, what do you think are some factors that could be leading to people not having sex in their 20s?
I can think of so many reasons, and I mean, it feels almost like it feels obvious, and I don't know how we get back to being more, like to having more sex and more human connection, but obviously, a big factor is going to be with dating apps and with social media. There are so many options that people are always looking for the better thing. Everybody, I think, has really high standards and are also very suspicious of people. Like, you can be so selective now that more times than not, a lot of the just organic human interactions aren't happening as much.
Do you think dating online has increased that much, though, just since 2008?
Since 2008, yeah. I want to say, I mean, YouTube was invented in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe, yeah. YouTube came
I
around
met
in
my wife online
2008.
in 2008, so I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's that drastic. Maybe the rise of Twitter and Instagram has, I guess, grown.
Yeah, I mean, you are right, though.
Yeah.
The internet and dating and chat rooms and all that stuff have been a
Yeah.
thing since the 90s. So maybe it's not specifically that. I do think that that has to at least play a factor. And then another thing, and I mean, maybe this is not true of everybody, but like it seems like with everybody having smartphones and cameras and everything, that like people are less likely to drink till they lose their inhibitions, and a lot of times sex and hookups were like one night stands coming home from bars and shit.
I think, first of all, I do think your social media point is right. I think that we're losing a lot of face to face connection, and you can sext each other, but you can't actually have sex,
Right.
via social media. But I think you actually hit on something else: the drunken sex. Drunken sex is, I picture that number to go way, way, way down. Partially because there's cameras everywhere, people are less likely. Plus, and I think this speaks to men specifically, why their numbers have tripled even more, is there are a lot of consequences to having drunken sex as a man now.
Yeah.
I know if I were single, hell no, I would not have drunken sex. I would not have sex. As a guy who used to do one night stands, no way in hell, if I were in my 20s right now, would I do a one night stand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying. I feel for, I feel bad obviously for women who are sexually assaulted, because I feel much worse for that, obviously. But I think that has to play a factor in it. And even the author, he got a lot of flack, but he's like, I think that does play a role in it
Oh,
as
really?
well. Oh yeah, yeah. The guy absolutely who did the study thinks that was part of it.
I think obviously another thing is just accessibility to porn. Like, that's the thing, is like the great motivator of getting out as a male and doing anything, pursuing financial ventures. Like, everything really for the longest time came down to finding a acceptable mate, somebody to carry on the family lineage, somebody to carry on the human race in some ways. But the driving factor for so many males was always sex, right? And
100%.
now it seems like because porn is accessible, like you can get up in the morning, rub one out, and then your motivation's fucking gone for the rest of the day. So like, what's the point in going out and meeting girls and taking the chance of getting rejected or whatever the thing is, when you can just like watch porn for 5 minutes and then go and get on with your day?
I think that's a very good point. Another thing that the author brought up is actually economic reasons. So men are more likely to live at home in their late 20s and 30s than women right now.
Sure.
People just ignore this fact, but men under 30 make less money than women. And I think all of that does play a role. You're not going out and taking women on dates as much because you don't have any money. Plus, you're living at home with mom and dad if you're 25, 26.
Yeah.
Where are you going to be having your sex? You know? Um, and I think economic factors probably have a lot to do with it. And I think I've said this for a while. I think we're in this new Puritan era where everyone's offended by everything and everyone's
Yeah.
angry about everything. And ironically, for totally different reasons than the religious right, sex is almost shamed now in a weird way, which is bizarre to me.
I definitely don't disagree with that. I don't know exactly what it's just sexuality in general. Like it's cool to be all sorts of sexualities unless like you're just like I don't know. I don't even know if I should open that can of worms, but it's like all sex is celebrated unless you are the heterosexual male,
Mhm.
and then it can a lot of times be seen as almost predatory, where other sex is liberating. Heterosexual males are predators.
Yes, I would say, and to me, statistically, if it were all sex was down, up or down, which would make sense, and it is all down, but the fact that it's more like males has tripled to me, kind of, I think illustrates the point you're probably talking about. You know, that it's a place where like you said, it's seen as predatory and wrong for a guy to check out a woman, or to find women attractive almost in a weird way, or to want to have sex with women. And maybe not maybe, there are some good things that have come from this, obviously. There's also, but my other thing is too, I know a lot of people in their like 20s who are really angry about everything.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, is it because you guys are not having sex? Like, does that play into this thing as well? Because I feel like if everyone was out having a little more sex and having a little more fun and taking life a little less seriously, maybe they wouldn't be mad about everything in the world. I don't know if there's a correlation between those two.
I can see that, and also to play the other side of it, from a woman's perspective, if you're looking for viable mates, if you're looking for people to be in a relationship with, and your peers are still living with their parents or aren't making money and don't have their shit together in the same way, then and they do have the ability to shop or browse so much, it's like, why waste time with the person who may not be as goal oriented or as driven towards a serious future as the woman.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a firm believer of, you need to find someone who matches your level of ambition, now or either way. Like I work a lot, I work a lot, and my wife does too. Every time, 9 times out of 10 we're recording, my wife's at work working a 12-hour shift in a surgery unit, and
Yeah.
it's, I think you definitely need to. And if a guy is just chilling at home, and it's not politically correct to say, but let's be real, men who earn money and have goals, obviously, and I think that's totally justifiable, but even earn money and have more stuff, have nicer stuff, do get more sex,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's one of those things. You're seen as culturally a provider. I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with that. I think a man should try to be a provider, but if economically young men are being hit the worst, 60% of college graduates are female, young men are dropping out of high school at an alarming rate. They're earning less money at an alarming rate. And I think the economic factors could be a big part of it.
And then what about and obviously there's been gaming since the late 70s, early 80s, home gaming and stuff like that. But do you think our access to distractions kind of curbs the sexual appetite?
I actually do, and that's one of the things that the author of this study found. Actually, I'm gonna bring up this and give him credit. The guy who wrote this, it was written by, well, it's a Washington Post, but I don't know who actually did it. But Washington Post did it, and that's one of the things they stated was that Christopher Ingram it looks like they stated that video games and streaming, and there's just more distractions now. Everything's at your fingertips to keep you
Mm-hmm.
entertained. And I know I have, and I'm sure, I think every married person can definitely say this, or committed relationship person. Sometimes you have sex out of boredom because you're sick of watching movies. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you do use sex as a distraction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
And
it's
with
really interesting, and part of me is like, well, I'll propose the question. Do you think that do you think that it's a problem?
um I mean, I think probably not. Reason why I think there's the factors leading to this are a huge problem. Like, more people living at home, more, not as much money. Those things are problems. The actual less sex probably has a net benefit, if I'm being completely honest, because I feel like one of the big problems with our culture is people getting pregnant who should never be pregnant.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying women. I'm talking everyone. When I say getting pregnant, I mean men and women
Mm-hmm.
producing children that they shouldn't be producing. And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. On one side of it, it's like there was this really important need to reproduce for thousands and thousands of years, and now we are at this like critical mass as far as population goes. Maybe not. Maybe we could keep piling fucking people on top of each other for generations to come, but that need for the survival of humanity isn't necessarily there as much anymore because of how many people there are. However, I feel like psychologically there are benefits of sex as far as like, and maybe you can get those same kind of fulfillments or same kind of gratifications in other ways. But I do worry about the lack of interaction. It reminds me of like Japan, a place that's very, very technologically advanced, and how high the suicide rate is in males in a society like that, where there is so much repression because everybody's just kind of confined to their own space.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. There's definitely a huge perk to human interaction and physical interaction. I do think it calms you. I know it does for me. It helps get rid of anxiety. I know for men, having more sex prevents prostate cancer. There's like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of health benefits to having a lot of sex, actually. At least for men. I don't know if it is for women. I'm assuming there's probably some health benefits there as well. But I yeah, I could see suicide rates being affected by this. I also think you're seeing the rise of this, and you kind of lightly touched on it, is this us versus them between the genders right now, which is not healthy because was a MGTOW, the men going their own way. Have you heard of that crap?
No.
So it's a group of angry guys who got sick of women because they got their hearts broken a bunch of times, which fucking man up, we all do,
Mm-hmm.
And women get their heart broken all the time because guess what? Women date some shitty men and men date some shitty women. It's not exclusive to a gender. There's a lot of shitty people and sometimes you date them.
Yeah.
And there's these guys who you can find them. They're crazy people. They're people who literally they're like, we're going our way, no women, and they are actual sexists. Like you hear the things they say and you're like, they're pretty much the male version of feminist is what
Right. Right.
they are. They really are.
So I guess they found solace in each other and other men to build them up, as far as because we really do need those human interactions and to be part of something. So I mean, yeah, people do get burned, and maybe that turns people off from sex. But maybe there's also just this general fear of being burned, or this general fear. Like, I think we crave it, and we also are so much more suspicious of it now, and that's just people. I think we crave connection, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know exactly how to articulate it. I find it interesting, and I don't know that it is. I don't know that it is like an epidemic that matters. I just don't know how we get, like, with more and more technology being brought into the fold, how do we get back to a society where it's more connected?
I don't know. I think I know for me, taking breaks from social media is huge for me, but that's something you have to do as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
Like I recently just reactivated my Twitter. To be honest, I realized we were getting a couple of views from my Twitter. So
Mm-hmm.
the whole reason I reactivated, I was getting a lot more interaction on mine than the people are terrible. So plug, go follow at PPL are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Because, but I know for me, getting away from social media does help me in my personal interactions, whether it's friends, whether it's my wife, whatever, it does help, but you have to do that yourself. And I think you're gonna see a backlash to social media. I think it's already starting to go. I know you see Facebook has fallen off a cliff
Mm-hmm.
with younger users. Twitter's falling off a cliff with younger users. Snapchat isn't. Snapchat's seeming to stay strong, but I think you're going to see a weird backlash to it, and people are going to crave human interaction again. I know I do.
I just try to play back through history, and ever since the Industrial Revolution, the momentum has gone forward and not the other way. I mean, maybe during the hippie movement or the free love movement, people stepped back away. I don't know, though, because technology was different then. There wasn't necessarily the same kind of technology. Television maybe was a thing, and maybe the hippies kind of rejected television.
But even television was different because you can sit around a TV together and watch a movie and
Yeah,
still get interaction. Me and my wife's favorite thing to do is go to movies together or watch
yeah.
a movie together, and you sit there and you cuddle up, and that's human interaction. It's very different. I know a lot of people, I'm sure you know, especially being on YouTube and on podcasts, is that I know a lot of people who all their friends are online,
Mm,
you know?
yep.
And I don't get me wrong, I have online friends, especially after doing this. You're one of my best friends and we've
Yep.
never met in person. And but I also have friends outside. I know you also have friends outside and you also have a wife and all that. And that's how it needs to be. Your entire life should not be online. Like it's not healthy, I don't think, for anyone. Especially if you invest so much in these relationships with people that may not really give a fuck about you, you know?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's a really good point. Like me and you, well, I mean, just to draw the correlation, like we've never like shaken hands before. We've never
Mm-mm.
had like that kind of physical connection or eye to eye sit down conversation. And I do think obviously for people that have a difficult time, whether they can't leave their house because of disabilities, whether they're just not super good in social situations, I think it's better to have people online than not have anybody, obviously.
True.
But I do think it's important to be able to, to have actual one-on-one connection with people. And it's interesting. It does kind of tie into what I wanted to talk about. They're actually fairly related, and talking about relationships, especially online relationships, but not specifically in today's day and age. There are just so many ways of meeting people casually. Sometimes that kind of develops past that and people get a little bit more personal or talk more regularly. But I kind of just wanted to ask the question about having relationships with people of the opposite sex in your case, or like same sex if you're attracted to the same sex. Basically, is in a relationship, is it possible to have a friendship with a person that is sexually viable to you?
Short answer before we extrapolate is yes. I think you're absolutely allowed to have friendships of the opposite sex or whatever, the same sex if that's what you're into. But I feel like friends, yes. Best as someone who had a female best friend. I'm still friends with her, but there's distance between us now, both emotionally and physically. She lives across the country now. I don't think having a best ride or die female friend works necessarily.
I think we're really on the same page about this. And it's interesting that you put it that way, because if you asked me just a couple weeks ago, I think my first answer would be, of course you can. Of course I can have a female friend that's not more than a friend. But then I started to read into it because I felt like I thought unanimously everybody was going to agree with me. And of all things, the majority of the bigger publications that somebody had written a kind of editorial about it, people kind of said the same thing. It's like, what is a friend? First of all, how do you define a friend? And for me, I think of it as just like casual interactions, maybe everybody getting up and going bowling or something like that, and that being cool. But once it does get to be like leaning on this person for emotional support and stuff like that, I think it can get more complicated.
Yeah, I actually am going to bring a very personal story, and I told my wife I was going. I'm going to talk personally about our marriage on the podcast. One of my back when I lived back home, I met this girl, worked with her, still is a very good friend of mine. The one that I used to have the podcast with, she became my best friend, like ride or die, would do anything. We'd go to dinner, see movies together. And
the two of you?
All the time.
Okay.
Hung out constantly. My wife worked all the time. Her husband worked all the time, and I love her husband, great guy, and we would always hang out. And it caused problems in my marriage for the first time ever. It caused problems in my marriage. My marriage had been easy up to that point. And I took it as like, my wife didn't trust me. I was like, you don't trust me. How the dare you not trust me? We've been together all these years. And looking back on it, she was right. And it makes me feel like a horrible person, a horrible husband. Now, I never did anything. There was never a romantic relationship, nothing of that nature. It was purely friendship. And I didn't understand why, because my friend was a replacement for my best friend who moved to Denver. In my eyes, I'm like, she filled that void for me. We watched movies and we talked about comic books and all that nerdy shit that my wife isn't into.
Mm-hmm.
But now looking back at it, I think I invested too much emotionally into another woman. And I understand, and I feel like shit about it, to be completely honest with you. Like, it's one of those things I wish I could take back, because she became my best friend, and my wife should be my best friend. And I understand why she felt jealous. At the time I didn't, because even though there was nothing romantic in our friendship, there was a level of bond and a level of connection that I probably should have only reserved for the woman I'm married to. Now, that being said, me and her are still friends. I talked to her the other day on the phone.
Is she going to watch this?
Huh?
Is she going to watch this?
Oh, she probably will. Yeah.
And it was platonic on both fronts?
Both fronts, 100%.
And the husband was cool with it?
Oh, yeah, super cool. At least I think so.
I was going to ask, you don't know, like, y'all never talked about, did you ever talk about problems that you had in your relationship because of it?
With her?
Yeah.
Or with him?
With her.
With her? Yeah, we addressed it, and she was like, I never want to make your wife jealous. And we tried to, like, do couples things, and we did couples things, because I wanted to make sure everybody was comfortable with it. And it just didn't work. I thought I could manage it. And even though it was platonic on both ends, 100%, it caused problems, and it hurt my wife. And that's something I deeply regret.
To not make you overshare without reciprocating. The reason why I brought up this topic, same kind of deal, personal stories. And when I got into the podcasting thing specifically, I might have told you this before, like I was, my dad had just passed away a couple years before. I was kind of in a low place and didn't have like a whole lot of friends that were into the same common interests as I was. I have lots of friends. Most of them, like I've told you before, we were like musicians and stuff. Most of my friends could give a shit about comic books or movies or a lot of the kind of stuff that I'm into, synthwave, whatever the thing is, stuff that you meet people on the internet and they're into that people in your direct sphere maybe aren't so much. But I remember watching the Schmoes Know podcast and seeing like mixed company, guys and girls on a radio show, cutting up, having a good time. And I was like, man, that would be really cool to bring people together and to just be able to like have this outlet to be able to talk about things that I'm passionate about. And it was always part of my vision to kind of emulate that and say, like, I didn't want it to be a boys club necessarily. I didn't want it to be all guys all the time. I wanted to have different perspectives to talk about different kinds of things. I feel like we can bring a lot of value to pretty much any conversation that we have, but other people's voices can contribute to that in ways that I really can't. So I always thought having women on was important. And maybe that sounds silly to the outside perspective, but I always tried to mix it up and have mixed company. And Victoria was cool with it always. There was a time when I had a female co-host that got to be very regular on the show. Same kind of deal. Like, I did not look at her as a viable option in that way. I've never met a girl since I've been with Victoria that I was like, I want to back burner that in case things don't work out. I've got a backup plan or something like that. That was never my intention, but it did get to the point where it got, to where we were just kind of like chatting with each other, having conversations about stuff that I'm super interested in, that maybe Victoria is not so interested in. And I think that in itself kind of can create a little bit of conflict. And you mentioned it as well. The girl that you were really close with, she was into things that you're into that your wife isn't into. And I think that there's a little bit that can be threatening to people.
It's one of those things. Pretty much mirrors what I said. Like I relate to that because I think also to you and me, and I think both of us, and I know both of us crazy about our wives, and because of that, I almost in a weirdly arrogant way, thought I was above, like, oh, those people who can't have friends with opposite sexes because they have weak marriages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that one, it's never going to be a problem in my life. And my wife was super cool about everything until I did invest too much. I did text her too much. I didn't hang out with her too much. Platonic, but I can understand. And I always said, oh, it wouldn't have bothered me if my wife did it, but it might have. I'm like, my wife has guy friends, but she's never had a guy best friend,
Right.
Like, she has a guy friend from back home who's literally in another country that he's a super cool dude. I like him, but they were not as close as me and my friend were. And as far as I know, her husband never had a problem. I think he knew I didn't want anything to do with his wife either, I think he knew that we were just friends. But I mean, maybe there's people that works for, but for me, it didn't. It really didn't. It fucked up my marriage so bad for like a year. We argued about it constantly.
Yeah. I kind of went through it recently, and it was this. My situation was a little more innocuous, I think, because I never did get to a point where I was hanging out with a girl that often. But there have been a couple girls over the years that, like, and I've said this before, I connect with girls pretty well because I'm a feeler. Like, I talk about things that a lot of guys don't necessarily talk about. And for girls, I imagine it's kind of refreshing to meet a guy that's willing to talk about and open up about those kind of things. But for me, sometimes it's hard to connect with people that don't talk about those kind of things. So I've had an easy time making female friends over the years, and never thought of it as being a problem. But like you said, I don't know if I switched the roles, it would be pretty difficult, I think. And maybe like you said about arrogance, like, I figured that she knew me well enough to know that I would never do some shit like that. But it really, I don't even think is all about the sexual side of it.
No, I think for my wife, I know my wife knows I didn't cheat on her. I know she knows that. She never even did that. I think it was more about the emotional thing of like, and I'm like you. So, and this is a great tangent to go on, is the conversation we have now, and I think the reason we're good at having a podcast like this is you and me are kind of this way. We're both kind of sissies underneath all of it.
Yeah.
Where I like to talk about my emotions, and I think a lot about how I feel, and I connect with women a lot because I will more likely talk about my insecurities with women than I will with men.
Of course.
You know, guys can be sometimes it's just, I have some really good guy friends that we like share everything. We talk about our lives, and I think it's healthy. But a lot of dudes, it's like, oh, that's girly or that's gay. It's that type, and sometimes, as much as I love just talking about movies and video games, sometimes I want to talk about something deeper. And a lot of guys don't feel that for me. So I've always, like, I get along, I meet women, and I just, like, I love women, not even in a sexual, well, I mean, I love my wife obviously in a sexual way, but I mean, when I meet a woman, that's not what's on my mind. I legitimately like them as people a lot of times better than I like men.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing. I mean, yeah. So if it were reversed, if Victoria had like a best guy friend that she talked all the time, do you think you would be okay with it?
I think it would drive me nuts, dude. I really do. And that's why I can kind of understand, when you do just kind of put yourself in the other person's situation, I think it would drive me nuts. But I also would like to think that I'm mature enough that my wife could have guy friends. There's just got to be a line somewhere. And I don't know how you dictate what that line is, where there's a comfortable place for that line to be set, that like you are still able to have friends of the opposite sex, but you're not allowed to blank.
Yeah, that's a line I feel like I've gotten really good at now after what I've been through, of like finding that friendship level where I'm like, this is perfectly acceptable. It's not too far. My wife recently, she met a guy through work that I knew she was texting. Doesn't bother me at all. Maybe it's just who I am. Doesn't bother me at all. And she gets a call from that girl's like husband, that guy's wife or whatever, or so she thinks it is, and is like, what do you guys talk about? And she's like, I met you, and all that. And I'll be honest, it didn't bother me, but they're also not best friends. They just text every once in a while.
Right.
Like that didn't bother me in the least, to be completely honest. I trust my wife with everything. If I had to worry about that, I wouldn't have married her in the first place. And sometimes I think I am extremely laid back, so I assume others will be as laid back as me.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah, I have a couple of good friends that are lesbians, and I don't think Victoria really has a problem with that, because they don't look at me as viable in that same way. So like if I'm sharing cooking recipes with my friend Vanessa or some shit, or laughing about something that she shoots me a link of or whatever, then like that's not going to be a problem. I just think that there's something. And I can understand this. It's because I can't think of something it's comparable to, because Victoria doesn't do the podcast. She doesn't do the movie reviews and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit different. But there's a lot of younger female people in this space, and it does seem like there's something a little more threatening about the geek girl that's like super into, she knows all about the X-Men or like whatever the thing is that Victoria's like, I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that friend can relate to you on another level than your own wife can.
Yeah.
And that being said, my wife likes like the dumbest girly shit, like Real Housewives. If there was a guy who was really into that shit and wanted to talk to my wife about it, I don't think it would bother me. But also, realistically, if there was a guy who was super into the Housewives of Atlanta,
he's gay.
Yeah. Speaking of that, it sounds weird. I'm on this trip, like just in general, gay men are like my favorite people to hang out with. And I think part of it is some of them, especially flamboyant gay men, it's kind of like having a female friend in a lot of ways,
Sure.
to where that it doesn't cause any drama. Like I love my gay friends. Let's go out to gay bars. I absolutely love it. We'll sit there and laugh. They'll say the things. We'll talk about our emotions, but I get that same connection without there being any threat to the most important thing in my life, which is my wife.
Do you think that there's any element of this that is you feeding your own ego or your own narcissism?
About having friends of the opposite sex?
Yeah.
100%. You
Yeah.
didn't even do the podcast if we weren't insecure motherfuckers.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there's also a bit of that. Is there's always been validation. I think, and probably for everybody across the board, if you could get that validation from the opposite sex, it keeps you feeling like you're like you are still relevant, you are still viable, you know, especially for guys, and you and I both have been in relationships for a very long time. And I don't do it intentionally. It probably is subconscious, but I think I can acknowledge that I've always kind of craved affirmation. Like you said, I think the podcasting in the first place is kind of a byproduct of that. So maybe I am more accountable than I'd like to admit, because instead of just like not letting my ego play a factor in the things that I do, just like kind of playing into it more than I should have.
You bring up a very good point. So one of the things for me is it's weird. I'm an extremely confident man. I know you are too, but there's like everybody, a lot of insecurity. And I know for me, it's from being 400 pounds most of my life.
Yeah.
It's from being morbidly obese that sometimes I do crave someone feeling like looking at me and thinking I'm attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because something that I feel like your average person got a lot more than I ever did. I was like starved for it, you know, like even when I was single and I met women and everything, it wasn't based on my looks. No one thought I was good looking. Everyone, because I could talk, because I was funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why I got far. It was never. And so now that I have less weight, sometimes it does, because it's this weird thing that I'm missing. And just like you said, I know, you know, I know Shoei tells me she thinks I'm hot all the time. I know, I guarantee you, Victoria tells it to you, but sometimes you're like, well, they need to say that because they're my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, and sometimes it is your own insecurities that can get the best of you. I'm happy I've never let those securities cross any lines, but it's a dangerous thing if not handled properly.
So yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out where that line is. Like you said, I guess as you talk through it and you kind of are able to approach it pragmatically, it helps to define what is acceptable, what is not acceptable in a relationship. And as long as I've been with Victoria, I should know these kind of things. But, you know, I think in any relationship, you're going to bump into conflict. I think that's just part of growing together as people and all of that kind of stuff. But I think what I've learned from it is the concern I don't think was ever a physical concern or like a sexual affair kind of thing. I think it was like you were talking about, like, and I mentioned it as well, like when you start to lean on somebody else for support and start to confide things in another person that maybe you're not able to share with your wife, you're getting into a problematic area, because we all like to think that we're above it, but you're opening yourself up to the possibility of getting into an emotional relationship with somebody.
And you actually brought up another point that I think is something I know for me that I've learned it. Like, my wife is absolutely my best friend now. She wasn't when we got married. I'll be completely honest. She turned into my best friend over time. Like, my wife is literally, I think she's the funniest woman I've ever met. I think she's hilarious. She'll be home later tonight and I just can't wait to hang out with her.
Yeah.
Like, she is literally my favorite person. But that's over years. I used to have a real hard time being vulnerable around my wife. And it ironically came from a place of love. I wanted to be such the man that I didn't want to ever show her that I could be weak.
Yeah,
sure. I wanted her, you know how it is. You want your wife to look at you and think you're fucking Superman.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would give that vulnerability to a friend. And I used to think, well, you don't trust me because you think I'm going to cheat on you, and which offended me because I would never cheat. It's just not who I am. But I think you hit the point you hit the nail on the head. It's for them, it was never about the physical. I don't think my wife ever was worried about me physically cheating on her. I think she was jealous that I was being vulnerable and open with someone of the opposite sex. That being said, I do have these conversations with guys. I mean, this is a very vulnerable conversation. Granted, everyone's going to see it. It's a very vulnerable conversation with a man. If you were a woman, would it change the context of the conversation? Absolutely. It just does.
That's a really good point, too.
You know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. That kind of is an interesting place to wrap this thing up, guys. I actually really want to know what your thoughts on this conversation are. I think it's an interesting conversation and something that I'm sure a lot of you that have been in relationships can contribute to. So let us know what your thoughts are on that down in the comments section. As Caleb said, make sure that you're subscribed to People Are Terrible here on YouTube, but also follow us on Twitter at PPL Are Terrible.
And every SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, we're on every place in audio only form.
That's what's up, man. And I really do feel like the audio is where this format and these conversations thrive. So if you guys are avid podcast listeners, or maybe you're just looking for a podcast to get into, make sure that you subscribe. Take us with you to work. Take us with you to the gym. Take us with you wherever you go. And until next time, and on behalf of both of us, be terrible.